In this video, we'll explore the tragic story that unfolded in 2007. In the state of Kansas, 18-year-old Kelsey Smith vanished under mysterious circumstances after a trip to the store. Her disappearance quickly drew media attention, and crucially, CCTV footage played a pivotal role in unraveling the mystery. Kelsey Smith was born on May 3, 1989, in Overland Park, Johnson County, Kansas. She was one of 5 children born to Greg and Missy Smith. Kelsey graduated from Shawnee Mission West High School on May 24, 2007, and was excited about starting college in the fall. She was well known for her outgoing and friendly personality. Kelsey had a sense of humor that left a lasting impression on everyone. She played the clarinet in her school's marching band and worked at the AMC movie theater. On June 2, 2007, she had a shift that morning. Her mother, Missy, was heading out to a friend's wedding, completely unaware that their lives were about to change forever and that she would never see her daughter alive again. Missy said goodbye to Kelsey before leaving for the wedding. Kelsey drove to work in the car her parents had given her, and her morning shift passed without any issues. After work, she met up with her father and sister, Lindsay, and they spent the day at an amusement park. It was a wonderful day that, tragically, did not end happily. Around 6 p.m., Kelsey decided to go shopping. She asked Lindsay if she wanted to join her, but her sister declined, so Kelsey left home alone and headed to the nearest Target department store. Before leaving, Kelsey informed her father, Greg, about her plans and told him she loved him. Greg, a devoted father and police officer, had taught his children basic self-defense techniques and emphasized the importance of safety. About an hour later, Kelsey called her mother, who was returning home from the wedding, and mentioned that she was shopping. They had a brief conversation and planned to see each other at home later. After some time, Kelsey's boyfriend, John, arrived at the Smith home. John had earned Greg's trust and was a regular presence in their household. Everyone thought their relationship had the potential to become something more serious. That evening, Kelsey had gone to the store to buy a gift for John. He tried to call her but couldn't get through, so he went to her house, only to find she wasn't there. Greg began calling his daughter, but she didn't answer. After numerous unsuccessful attempts to reach Kelsey, he started to worry. As a policeman, he tried to stay calm, but as officer, his concern grew with each passing minute. Greg called Kelsey's friends, but none of them knew where she might be or why she wasn't responding to calls and texts. Unlike many of her peers, Kelsey always kept her family informed, even if she was running just a few minutes late. After a while, John and Kelsey's sister, Lindsay, got into their car and started driving around the area, hoping to find Kelsey's vehicle. They worried that she might have been in an accident or possibly pulled over by the police. They checked the parking lots of various stores and eventually spotted Kelsey's Buick. Although she had told her father she was going to the Target store, they found her car parked near a different store. John checked the car, but Kelsey wasn't there. Lindsay called her father to let him know they had found Kelsey's car. Greg instructed them not to touch anything, as the car could be a potential crime scene. Preserving any possible evidence was crucial. Greg then contacted the police and reported his daughter missing. The police promptly launched an official investigation. Detectives immediately arrived at the location where John and Lindsay had found Kelsey's car. The first odd thing that Greg and everyone else noticed was that her car wasn't in the Target parking lot but next to another store, in a poorly lit part of the parking lot. The detectives carefully examined the car, hoping to find anything that might help locate Kelsey. Inside, they found only a package of gift wrapping paper and the gift she had bought for John. There was nothing to indicate a crime, no signs of a struggle or traces of blood. The detectives noticed something strange and suspicious: a piece of fabric that looked like a t-shirt sticking out of the trunk. With anxiety in his heart, Greg opened the trunk, but it was empty. Kelsey was not there. Since she had bought her gift for John at Target, it meant she had been there at some point. Forensic experts meticulously examined the car and discovered a thumbprint on the seatbelt. Strangely, it didn't match Kelsey's or anyone else who would typically have access to the car. Kelsey had recently graduated from high school with plans to attend the University of Kansas to pursue her dream of becoming a veterinarian. She was known as an outstanding student, ambitious, and full of cheer. With her whole life ahead of her, the sudden disappearance was even more bewildering. Now, Kelsey had vanished without a trace, leaving her family desperate for answers. The police pressed on with their investigation, but aside from the unidentified fingerprint, there was no evidence suggesting her car was a crime scene. It appeared as though someone had simply abandoned the vehicle in that parking lot. Turning their attention to Target, the detectives hoped that reviewing the CCTV footage would shed light on Kelsey's disappearance and provide some much-needed answers. When the officers arrived, the store had already closed, but they managed to find someone to let them in and access the recordings. Spending several hours at the monitors, the police meticulously tracked Kelsey's every move. However, her trip to the store appeared entirely ordinary. She found what she needed, paid for her items, and headed to the parking lot without any indication that something was amiss. Inside the store, Kelsey didn't engage in any arguments or conversations. She remained calm and left on her own. But what struck investigators as odd was Kelsey's route after leaving the store. Instead of heading home as expected, she inexplicably drove in the opposite direction. The CCTV footage quality was poor, making it impossible to discern any details. This raised several pressing questions. Why did Kelsey deviate from her usual route? Was she driving the car herself, or could she have been coerced or hiding of her own accord? As dawn approached, Greg and Missy headed to the police station, where detectives asked them a series of questions. Given Greg's background in law enforcement, he understood that this was standard procedure in such cases. In cases like these, detectives have to consider all possibilities, including the involvement of family members. Greg understood that the sooner he and Missy answered the questions, the sooner they could eliminate themselves as suspects, allowing the police to focus on other leads. The couple cooperated fully, providing answers to all inquiries. With Kelsey's parents cleared, the next person of interest for the police was her boyfriend, John. Since Kelsey had been spending most of her free time with John in the days leading up to her disappearance, and he was the last person she had contact with, investigators needed to establish his whereabouts before he arrived at Kelsey's house to inform her father of the situation. Partners often have a direct connection to what happened to their loved ones. Sub-detectives felt compelled to press John for information. They asked him a series of questions, phrased differently each time, to gauge his reactions and assess whether his story remained consistent. This interrogation lasted for about 2 hours as they delved deeper into the circumstances surrounding Kelsey's disappearance. Despite John's insistence that he had no involvement in Kelsey's disappearance and that their relationship was solid, he cooperated fully with the detectives, even allowing them to scrutinize the contents of his phone. While the officers were leaning towards believing John's sincerity, they refrained from ruling him out as a suspect entirely. Feeling a sense of urgency and unable to simply wait, Kelsey's family took matters into their own hands and initiated their own unofficial investigation. Greg understood all too well that with each passing hour, the chances of finding his daughter alive dwindled. Determined not to waste any time, Greg, Missy, and John rallied people willing to assist and organized them into search groups. Each volunteer was equipped with bundles of printed missing person flyers and tasked with combing the streets, asking passers-by if they had seen Kelsey. Meanwhile, Greg also reached out to local radio stations, pleading for airtime to spread awareness about Kelsey's disappearance and appeal for any information that could lead to her whereabouts. He requested that they share details about his daughter's disappearance, urging anyone with valuable information to reach out to the authorities or the Smith family. About an hour after the radio stations broadcasted news of Kelsey's disappearance, television channels began covering the story, further amplifying efforts to locate her quickly. As news spread, Kelsey's classmates joined the search efforts, going door to door in the hope that someone may have heard or seen something pertinent to the investigation. They understood that even seemingly insignificant details could be crucial in piecing together Kelsey's whereabouts. One of the key questions puzzling the investigators was Kelsey's whereabouts during the 3 hours between leaving Target and the discovery of her car by John and Lindsay. To uncover this crucial information, the investigators once again turned to surveillance footage. The parking lot where Kelsey's car was found belonged to another store, which fortunately had its own set of cameras. However, The poor quality of the recordings and inadequate lighting in that section of the parking lot made it difficult for the detectives to discern anything that could shed light on Kelsey's movements. The investigators observed Kelsey's car entering the poorly lit area of the parking lot, followed by the headlights extinguishing. Shortly after, a figure emerged from the vehicle and departed, but it was only a silhouette, making it impossible to confirm whether it was Kelsey or someone else. The police felt disheartened by the lack of clarity in the footage. However, Kelsey's family took it as a hopeful sign, steadfast in their belief that she had no reason to disappear willingly. Their sole focus remained on locating Kelsey alive and safe. Despite their efforts, the police had yet to uncover any new leads in the investigation. Determined to uncover any potential leads, the detectives revisited the surveillance footage from Target, this time using better monitors for a clearer view. They meticulously retraced Kelsey's every move while she was inside the store but found nothing out of the ordinary. It appeared to be a routine shopping trip, with Kelsey purchasing the items she needed before leaving the store and heading to the parking lot like any other customer. Despite the poor quality of the recordings, the detectives managed to spot a suspicious detail. After Kelsey exited the store, she made her way to the parking lot and opened the back door off her car to stow away her purchased items. As she moved towards the driver's door, a blurry spot flashed behind her. The investigators interpreted this as a potential attack on Kelsey as she entered the car, suggesting a possible abduction. Despite replaying the recording multiple times, the investigators struggled to glean a clear understanding of the events due to the limited viewing angle and poor quality of the footage. It took approximately 15 seconds before the door closed, and the car departed from the parking lot. The possibility arose that Kelsey wasn't the one behind the wheel, or perhaps someone had threatened her, forcing her into the vehicle against her will. Reluctantly, the detectives informed Kelsey's parents that their daughter was likely the victim of an abduction. With only a video recording of the moment of the abduction at their disposal, the investigators faced a frustrating dilemma. The investigators turned their attention back to the Target CCTV footage with the hope of spotting someone matching the description of the individual wearing a white thirtan dark shorts. To their surprise, they discovered something they hadn't noticed before. Amon, dressed in a white t-shirt and dark shorts, discreetly following Kelsey's every move. He maintained a distance to avoid raising suspicion, but he was consistently present, shadowing her movements throughout the store. There was no mistaking it. The man was clearly tailing Kelsey. As she made her way to the checkout to pay for her items, he casually made his way to the exit, evidently leaving the store ahead of her to await her arrival in the parking lot. Subsequently, the police obtained a slightly clearer image of his face, though the quality wasn't perfect. Nevertheless, they remained hopeful that someone in the community would recognize this individual. The police reached out to the public, appealing for assistance in identifying the man. The influx of calls flooded in, surpassing 1,000, each potentially holding a lead. Sorting through this immense volume of data consumed a significant amount of time for the detectives. They diligently worked to filter out information unrelated to the case, focusing their efforts on leads that seemed promising. Several individuals resembling the man captured on surveillance were interrogated, but none proved to be the elusive suspect they sought. Despite the challenges, the breakthrough in the case came when the police successfully tracked Kelsey's phone after her disappearance. They discovered her phone was active in a wooded area near Longview Lake in Missouri, approximately 15 miles from the Target store. By this point, the FBI had joined the investigation, lending their resources to organize a search in the area where Kelsey's phone was last active. Around 200 people participated in the search efforts. Remarkably, Kelsey was found 4 days after her abduction, and just 45 minutes after her cell phone company provided crucial information about her phone's activity. This pivotal moment warrants closer examination. Tragically, Kelsey was found deceased, her body concealed under leaves and tree branches in a remote area. She was unclothed, a detail that spoke volumes about the motive behind this heinous crime. Her personal belongings lay just a few feet away from her. Forensic examination revealed that Kelsey had died from strangulation, with her own belt used as the weapon. Conveying this devastating news to her parents was undoubtedly one of the hardest moments for the police. The loss of Kelsey shook her family and friends to the core, leaving them heartbroken and grieving. With the perpetrator still at large and the fear of potential future kidnappings looming, the police felt an urgent need to apprehend the culprit swiftly. At this stage of the investigation, the primary evidence available was the CCTV footage. Recognizing that Kelsey's car had been abandoned in the parking lot at 9:17 p.m., the investigators focused their attention on reviewing footage from the target parking lot during the same time frame. To their surprise, they observed a man hastily running towards a dark pickup truck parked in the lot, swiftly entering the vehicle and driving off. It was indeed at 9:22 p.m., but initially, it seemed like it could have been a mere coincidence unrelated to the case. However, upon further scrutiny, the investigators realized that it was already dark when the pickup truck left the target parking lot. This led them to consider the possibility that the individual driving the truck might have arrived during daylight hours. Upon rewinding the recording, their suspicions were confirmed. The blue pickup truck had indeed pulled into the target parking lot at 6:55 p.m. Coincidentally, Kelsey had arrived just a minute later, parking her car next to the pickup truck, unbeknownst to her of the sinister connection at play. The release of images depicting the pickup truck and the individual following Kelsey proved fruitful, as concerned citizens contacted the police station with valuable information. 2 callers came forward, claiming to recognize the man in the picture. One caller identified himself as a colleague of the individual, while the other identified himself as a friend. Remarkably, both callers provided the same name, Edwin Hall. At 26 years old, Edwin Hall was married and a father, owning a pickup truck. Delving into his background, the police uncovered a troubling juvenile record. At 15 years old, Hal had threatened his adoptive sister with a bread knife, leaving a stain on his past. With this information in hand, investigators began to piece together a profile of Hall. Considering the possibility that Hall was indeed involved in Kelsey Smith's abduction and tragic demise, the police speculated that he might attempt to evade detection after his image appeared in the news. With the urgency of the situation, the police wasted no time in heading to Hall's residence. Upon arrival, they spotted Hall loading belongings into his car, presumably intending to flee with his family. However, the police managed to intercept him before he could make his escape. Hall was promptly arrested and taken to the police station for questioning. Despite his claims of innocence and professing ignorance about Kelsey Smith, his facade quickly crumbled when confronted with the damning evidence from the target CCTV footage. It left no room for doubt that Hall had been following Kelsey, rendering his denials implausible. Hall admitted to watching Kelsey, admitting he was drawn to her legs. However, he maintained his denial of any contact with her after she left the store. Despite his assurances, Hall agreed to provide the police with his DNA sample and fingerprints in hopes of clearing his name from the list of suspects. He was confident he had left no trace behind, but to his dismay, his thumbprint matched the one found on the seatbelt in Kelsey's car. The revelation of Hall's fingerprint on the seatbelt directly implicated him in the abduction and death of Kelsey Smith. With no plausible explanation for his presence in her car, the police were convinced of his guilt, regardless of his protests. When confronted with this evidence, Hall realized the gravity of the situation and opted not to await the DNA results. In a bid to avoid the death penalty, he made the decision to confess to his crimes, agreeing to divulge all the details of the heinous act he committed. Hall confessed that he developed an attraction to Kelsey when he first spotted her in the Target parking lot. He admitted to tailing her while she shopped, waiting until she approached her car. That's when he brandished his weapon and launched his attack. Hall forced Kelsey into her vehicle and drove her to a remote wooded area outside the city. There, he instructed her to undress, ultimately ending her life out of fear she would expose him. Afterwards, Hall concealed Kelsey's body beneath branches and leaves before returning to his normal routine. Following the tragic events involving Kelsey, Hall abandoned her car in a nearby parking lot and returned to the Target store where he had initially parked his pickup truck. From there, he made his way home, attempting to resume his normal routine. In September 2008, Edwin Hall was found guilty on all counts by the jury. During the trial, he extended an apology to Kelsey's family, expressing deep remorse for his actions. The court handed down a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for Edwin Hall. In the 16 years since Kelsey's tragic passing, she, who would have turned 34 on May 3rd, has emerged as the symbol of a movement pushing for greater responsiveness from telecommunication providers in emergency situations. This movement has gained momentum, particularly as GPS and cell phone technology have advanced and evolved over the years.